Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 20 of the Holistic Me podcast, a journey to finding wellness within. I'm your host, Jessica Bravo, and I'm super excited because we have Lindsay here with me today for our first official co-hosting interview episode, and also the first part one of the mini series for the 8 branches of classical Chinese medicine. Lindsay, please introduce yourself. Tell us about what you do and what you're sharing in this world right now.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel so privileged to be the first one with my podcast. I remember how exciting and scary it was to do it for the first time. And it's so fun to be able to talk with somebody that you like and that you get to enjoy their company. So it's a fun conversation and I'm looking forward to this. But I am a licensed clinical psychologist working and providing therapy in California. And I recently just started providing spiritual coaching to people all across the world. And I just signed up my very first international client today for coaching, which is awesome. Yeah. And so I have been in mental health field for over 15 years, but it was really this year that I started to blend spirituality with mental health and with therapy and helping people to take them to the next level in a more deep and fulfilling way than just, say, traditional therapy has been doing for most people. And I love it. The clients that are into a spiritual lens on therapy have loved it. And I've seen them sort of make really big changes a lot quicker than, say, when we just focus on traditional therapy. Traditional, I do cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness. Trying to think, what's the other one? I don't remember. I have a 3-pronged approach to most of my treatment, and now I can't remember the third one. It'll come to me in the middle of my sleep. But yes, that's what I love to do. And that's how I'm trying to help affect positive change in the world.
Love it. Thank you so much for the work that you do. It's so needed. I think especially now more than ever, where we're all in a space where we really need to, we have the time to look inward, right? Most of us, the current state of affairs in the world. And so it's an awesome time to be having this conversation. And so for those of you that maybe haven't heard the previous episode or last week's episode on the introduction to the 8 branches of classical Chinese medicine, this first branch that we're covering is the meditation or self-cultivation branch. And in classical Chinese medicine, this is considered to be the highest form of the medicine, which is really amazing that that's the case, because it's something that you can work on yourself, right? It's something that you can seek out help for, but it's something that you can really implement your own self-care practices and create wellness in your life by being mindful and doing things that further you, not only from an educational perspective, right? Growing yourself and expanding your skills, but also from a mental health perspective, right? And feeling more grounded in how you go about your day. So this all ties in so beautifully. And I really do feel that we need more mental health awareness in the world, and creating more strategies for people to really implement and take advantage of the power that things like meditation and self-awareness practices can bring. So yeah, lots.
I 100% agree. Yes.
Yeah. And I always share, especially when I talk about this, that everything that you can do for yourself is so much more powerful than anyone else can do for you. So just even taking the step to speak to somebody like yourself is so powerful, right? Just even that decision to put yourself first and take care of yourself. So yeah, I would love to dive into this conversation of what are your go-tos for somebody starting out, as far as maybe somebody who's interested in starting a meditation practice, and I'll share mine as well, but what is your go-to like starting point for somebody who wants to dive into meditation or self-growth?
So this may be a bias of mine, so I'm curious to hear what you have to say after I say mine. But my bias may be that I deal with a lot of anxious and depressed people. And so for
Mm,
me, I always tell them start with the guided meditation. So that way they are not sitting there alone in their thoughts that are then going chaotically in all these different directions. And then they feel like a failure because they can't shut their mind down for 5 or 10 or 20 minutes. I also tell them to start very small, do 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes you still want to keep going, that's another thing. But if after
mm,
5 minutes you're good, you're done. Do
yeah,
that a couple times a week. And that is a great place to start. And so many people can stop there and be fine. And then other people will keep doing that. And eventually they will work up to the place where they do want to do meditation, where they don't have somebody else's voice talking, but they have their own. Maybe they have a couple of trigger questions or ways to sort of enter in and get into a more spiritual space. But that's where I would say.
yeah. No, I love it. And it's very similar to what I usually recommend or teach my patients is to start small. I
Mhm.
like don't go like go big or go home does not apply here. Right? So I usually will say I will start them out with actually breath work as a
Mm,
form of meditation practice, and just focusing in on their breath and feeling where their breath is in their body, and are how are they breathing? Are they breathing very shallowly? Are they feeling restriction when they breathe? And tapping into that and setting a timer really for just 1 minute to start, or
that's a good
starting
point.
with just 10 rounds of breath, like 10 full breaths. Um, and then growing from there. And if they can, like, start with that once a day, and then maybe progress to that 1 minute, maybe 3 times a day, or you can just increase your single like time of focus to 3 minutes and then 5 minutes and so forth. And that will kind of kickstart or open the gateway to other forms of meditation practices. I find that counting too is a way, like you mentioned, a guided meditation, so you're not in your
Hmm.
head and getting distracted. I instruct them to count, so count on the inhale 1 to 10, and then when you get to 10 start over at 1, and it just basically gives your mind a task to focus
Yep.
on, so that you're not thinking about whether you're doing it right or not.
Or what
It's
you're going
so
to do 10 minutes after you're done breathing. And
right. So our minds want to be busy, I find, right? Like we want
Mhm.
it needs a task. And so it's funny too, people, I don't know if you hear this in your practice, but people assume when they hear about meditation or starting a meditation practice that they have to sit there in silence and like they're
Yeah.
not supposed to think. But it's okay to think, you guys.
Yep. Yep.
So
It means you're human, right? We
yeah,
can't actually turn the brain off completely. Like you
yeah,
just can't. You might find gaps in moments, right, where you can, and you can slow it down
yeah,
significantly, especially with a longer practice, like, working up to like years worth of practice. But I remind a lot of people, I'm like, you're human. You have thoughts.
yeah,
That's natural. So don't beat yourself up.
yeah. And the important thing is to just acknowledge them, right?
And let them
And
float.
yeah, let them float on by and just take note of it. Like, okay. And don't stress out about the fact that you're thinking.
Yep. I do like a couple of different ways of letting my clients like kind of know and normalize that and be like, okay, think of it as like a cloud, and you're just going to see the thought as a cloud and then it
Mm,
just disappears like it does in the sky.
yeah.
Or like ticker tape. And a lot of my clients are young. So they are like, I don't know what ticker tape is. And I'm like, that's okay. It's my grandpa's term and he's from like the 1900s. So it's okay. And then I explain to them it's kind of like that the conversation that's happening at the bottom of like CNN or e-news and
Yep.
like all that extra stuff at the bottom of a news broadcast, and I'm like,
Yep.
it's just that's it. And you just witness it without judgment, and it just goes
Yep.
by. And so all these different ways you can actually deal with it and to not judge yourself, I think, is the most beautiful thing that we can get from the Eastern culture, is that detachment and non-judgment.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Feeling, freeing ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
From that, from the thoughts that they don't define the experience, right? It's still,
Right.
you're still doing the work, even if the thoughts come while you're in doing it. It's still
Yep.
happening and it's still having a great benefit. Now, what are your, what direction do you tend to point people in once they have kind of had their foot in the door in that, within meditation or becoming more self-aware of their
Mm,
mind and their mental health and how it affects their body?
that's a good question. Um, I think with the kind of clients that I have, that
Yeah.
at least when it comes to meditation, I haven't seen them graduate much beyond
Mm.
just finally enjoying it and seeing the benefits of it. And then the fact that mental health symptoms significantly reduce, or they reduce so much that they feel like they at least have a handle on their emotions.
Yep.
That something I teach them is like, you're never going to get rid of depression. You're never going to get rid of anxiety. You're never going to get rid of these feelings, because they are just part of the human experience. We all have worries. We all have sad moments, bad days, that kind of stuff. But it's
Mhm.
detaching from like the the judgment that it's bad, or that you can't be in control of yourself. And this is a way that, like, if you get triggered by your wife, that, maybe I need to go take 10 minutes to meditate. Or if you are consistent with meditating first thing in the morning, maybe meditating right before bed, that you're going to see yourself and your emotions sort of flatlining a bit. And once that kind of happens, and I find that people are able to have that power over themselves and control over themselves, it's kind of like my need is kind of gone at that point. And so we will phase out therapy because they have figured it out. They are feeling much better. And we can reduce our number of sessions to make sure that this isn't just a good few months or what have you, or that it's only stable because you're checking in with me once a week and we're doing therapy. And so we phase it out slowly over time.
Yep.
And it's just so it's I don't know that I'm with people long enough to see them graduate to different stages beyond
Yeah.
just like my friends who I know we all kind of do things a little differently with meditation. I don't
Yep.
personally like guided meditations now. I get irritated when somebody's telling me what to do, unless it's something where like we're together as like a group, like we did a few days ago, or we have done as a group that we're in, where we do a meditation with a purpose, right? And
Yep.
one of us is guiding the group, then I'm not irritable at all. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. But if it's somebody else telling me, I'm like, this is my time to go journey and be with my spirit team. Like, calm down. I don't want to hear your voice
Yes.
because you're distracting me from having my alone time with my team. So it's a little different with that for me, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk. There's like a few things I wanna jump into from what you just said. Um, One is the triggers, right, that people experience and how we can become aware of them so
Mm-hmm.
that we can start to navigate. And then the other thing is your own practice. Like, what are you doing in this form of self-cultivation or meditation? So, if we want to like dive into triggers just for a little bit, I know you could probably do like a whole podcast just on triggers, but I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like even for myself, like I know I have my triggers that
Oh, yeah.
working through and growing through and identifying. It's a process to
Lifelong.
yeah, to uncover that and to even realize that you have them.
Oh yeah.
I think like once that came into my awareness, right? Maybe, geez, it doesn't even feel like it was that long ago because I'm still working so much on them. But it's maybe a few years ago, like that awareness coming into my reality of, oh, when I feel this way, when I'm
Mhm.
interacting with somebody, it's not just that they've upset me or that we're having an argument or whatever the case might be, but it's because I have something from way back when that is still inside of me that is causing me to react in this way. And they're not necessarily even doing anything wrong. It's like this like instinctive thing that comes up. And so yeah, what are your, I guess maybe what's one exercise or something that you might teach teach your clients or your patients about navigating triggers or kind of, I know it's very broad question, I guess, but what's your go-to strategy for that?
I'll do my best, and you just let me know if I'm not answering the question well, because you're right. It is something that it's like we could do like a whole year probably worth of conversations about triggers
So
because I think
much.
that that's huge. And I just feel like as soon as one trigger is identified and worked through, another one's going to come up, and you're just going to keep doing it for life. Like, because it
Yeah.
helps us to grow, right? Because we don't grow unless we are in an uncomfortable position. We are upset. We are fed up. And we only get that way when
Hmm.
we're uncomfortable and usually triggered. So,
Yeah. And that's
um,
part of the self-cultivation process, right? That
mhm,
growth. So
yeah.
yeah.
So as it relates to triggers, I really like my clients to tap into their mind because not their mind. I'm sorry. I'm working with their mind. I want them to tap into their body.
Hmm.
And if they can identify when they are upset, where it's located in their body, sometimes I will walk them through a little meditation or a little mental exercise where we will envision, like, let's say if I were working with you and I said, Jessica, where do you feel this when you get angry at your son, right? And you go, I feel it in the pit of my stomach. And I go, okay, cool. So let's go in there mentally for a moment and be with that feeling, right? In your stomach, and we tap in. Let's start to identify what is happening in there, right? So for some clients, this is a very easy thing. And for some, it's like they're so concrete that they're like, what do you mean tap into my stomach? And I'm like, shh, you're going to tap into your intuition. It's okay. So this isn't always a great technique for everybody, but for those
Right.
that maybe have a little bit more grasp with their intuition or their spiritual side or their imagination, they can tap into this more and pull some stuff out, which
Mm.
is interesting. And so we might get a color, we might get a word, we might get an emotion, we might get a memory. We could get all different types of information pieces. And then we find out, what does this thing need inside of you, right? Why?
Mm.
Why is it coming up? And what does it need from you in this moment? And what's so interesting is without even telling my clients that this is the connection, hands down, almost all of them are like, yeah, I feel young. And I'm like, cool. What age do you feel? Right. And then they go, oh, I feel kind of feel 7. And it could be the behavior feels 7 or the feeling inside my body feels like it's 7. And I'm like, okay, cool. So what happened at 7 that felt like? And then it kind of tries to link back in to what the original problem was, like let's
Yeah.
say I feel out of control in this moment. Okay, when you were 7, when did you feel out of control? And now we've got a link into what was the trauma that
Hmm.
they may not have been able to verbalize. I know why I get mad at my child. And now I do. Because at 7, my parent slapped me when I misbehaved. And now my kid's misbehaving. And I don't want to slap it because I'm the opposite, but it still brings up that emotion, right?
Yeah.
And so now we've got a talking piece, and now we've got something to process and bring up and work through. And I'm not sure that answered the question, but I hope it at least answered part of
Yes, no, I
it.
think absolutely. And I think that's the piece that's, I think, important to share, that there's something that's stored energetically in the
Mhm.
body from your past and your younger self, where it's still there, and becoming in tune with your body, like you said. And I have the same experience with some of my patients when I ask them certain health history questions and they can't make the connections, because
Mhm.
how is one thing related to the other? Like, those are two different
Right.
parts of my body. Um, but it's all connected. Everything is energy, regardless of how we want to look at it. And so at the end of the day, it's energy that it's stored, and we need to find, like, figure out what the connections are, so that we can release that energy and move on to the next thing that needs to be
Yep.
unblocked or released. And it's a beautiful process and a difficult process, but it's something that I believe is definitely tied into all of this in this first branch of that meditation and self-cultivation practice, because I feel like you can't really move further in, I guess, your either spirituality or just mental growth
Mhm.
if you're not addressing these things in your life as well.
100%.
You're only going to get so far before you hit a wall or plateau. And if you do want to move forward, then there's going to be things that you need to address and work on.
Yep.
I feel.
100%. Because when you've got stuck energy, stuck emotions, any of that is going to come out sideways, and you don't understand why. Like you said, there's no logical link between the two, but it's 100% linked.
Yeah,
100%, because if it didn't, you and your profession wouldn't be successful, and me and my profession wouldn't be successful, because I deal with like relationships and what actually is the output of this, right? And you deal with
right.
the physical representation of these trapped
Yeah.
emotions. And we would not be doing what we're doing with success without, that being the
So
truth.
true. Yeah, so true. And no matter what the concern is that's bringing patients into the door, clients, it's
Hmm.
uh, there's there's something that triggered way back at some point that led to this point of um, deterioration in health, whether it be mental health or physical health. But I do find many times in my own practice that when people go a long time without addressing their mental health, it shows up physically in other
Yep.
ways. And then they go about trying to resolve those things that come up physically without having really a lot of solution, especially,
Yeah.
from Western medical perspective. They're getting, like, certain prescriptions and things like that that sort of mask, and make them feel a little bit better, but they still know it's there and it's still problematic, and they can't really find any major solutions. But we need to tap in to, like, way back and really
Yep.
figure out. So people get really they're like shocked at my health history that I go through. They're like, "How is something that happened when I was, born, or my parents' health, related to my, unresolved joint pain?"
Yeah. And you're like,
So,
let me tell you, because it
yeah, let's
is.
let's put it all together. So that's why, again, this all just takes us right back to the that being the highest form of medicine is being in tune with the mind, and tuning into what's going on mentally, and progressing ourselves forward in that way. So tell me about what you do for your own practice, for your own self cultivation. What are you up to?
So I do actually meditate slash journey. I've taken a shamanic course. So I am
Love it.
far from being a shaman, but I think that it's definitely, I was like, at first, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this for fun. And then I did it and I was like, oh, I really like this. And so she teaches you how to go to the upper world or to go to the underworld to with your spirit animal, to talk to your spirit team and ask questions and help. Like, I think the next phase that we're about to learn is how to help others. What we've been
Mm,
learning this time is how to help ourselves. And so I do that every day, especially before I do therapy. I have a very regimented morning, um, so that
beautiful.
I make sure that I'm in the best mental space so that I can not only know where I'm at for the day, but
Yep.
that helps me to know if I'm picking stuff up that it's not me, because I'll be like, oh, I
Yep.
was fine all day. I started seeing you and now I'm feeling anxious. So you must be anxious. If you don't talk to me about feeling anxious, I might ask some probative questions to be like, okay, I'm getting your anxiety. Why is that? So I
Yeah.
journey, which is kind of like a very specific form of meditation. And I would like, I sound just like my clients. I would like to exercise more and do yoga. That's my thing where I'm like, I really miss yoga. Even if I did 10 minutes a day as part of my morning preparation before seeing clients, it would be yoga. But I, um, I spend time listening to music. I used to listen to just podcasts and I felt very disconnected mentally and spiritually. So I've started to
Mm,
just try to listen to more music and a little less podcast. So I have time to like hum or sing, which is very, I don't know, it's a powerful way for me to sort of either change my vibration, right?
yeah.
Or to change my mood. Like if I'm in a crappy mood, but I turn on some really fun tunes, it's kind of hard to stay in that crappy mood for too long.
Right.
So I'll do that. I do go for runs on the weekend when I don't have to see clients really early in the morning. So that is actually very important for me to keep that up. When we had fires here in California and our skies were just smoke filled for, about a
Mm,
month and I couldn't run, I was like, oh, I miss it. I miss
yep.
this. I'm not very good at it, but I really need it. And then spending time with my dogs, just petting them like they're with me right now. And I have an elderly dog who just paces because he has physical pain. And so
Mm,
he's just pacing, but just being around him and holding him and cuddling them is really helpful for my mental health. And then
yeah.
spending quality time with my husband is helpful. And then, crazy enough, but I have a new group of girlfriends that you're part of, and you guys are a huge part of my mental well being as well, is to connect
Yeah.
to like minded people who are on a similar path. And that just makes me feel completely connected and it helps. So, I think
Absolutely.
all of those pieces, and I'm probably missing something else very important, but that's what's coming to my mind. Yeah.
I love it. Oh, that's great. And the music piece, I think, is so on point. You can't, there's no way you can stay in a bad mood or in like a low vibration when you put on some really good music.
No.
Um, it's it's funny, our son loves music and he loves to dance, and so he will just like jam out to anything. And so even if I just finished like being frustrated or upset about something he did, if like music comes on and he starts like he can't snap his fingers yet, but he'll be like, like yeah, and like really feeling the beat and he'll do some funky dance moves and I just he can't help but like laugh and smile
It's
and like kind of join
infectious.
in. Yeah. But yeah, even and like you said, humming, it does. It like resonates through your body or singing.
Hmm.
That vibration is healing. And that's actually one of the things that I'll teach as part of breath work, depending on the patient, is using certain breath sounds. And when somebody has either a lot of anger or frustration, I instruct them on the liver breath sound because that's where anger will arise from energetically.
Mm.
And so it's a hing. So when you breathe
Ooh.
in, hing, and you like let it out, and it like that vibration runs through your body, and you can do it as loud and as many times as you want, or even more quieter if you want as well. But just even that sound itself, similar to a mantra.
Yeah.
And then for like more anxious or depressed or sad, like heart-centered type of energy, weak heart, so to speak, then it's a ha sound. So and like really like sighing and
Mm,
like that vibration running through your body. And so it's something I learned from my mentor, and while I was in acupuncture school, and I've continued to share that because it's so powerful to
yeah.
incorporate that. If you're already doing some breathing and you add in these sounds when necessary, I tell people like do it in the car, like when you're driving and no one's home.
Yep.
If you're worried about making weird noises,
Yep.
do it in your car, or like, and the other thing to like crank up some tunes and like belt it out, and just let out that energy, because we need to move it. It needs to get moved. And yeah, it's such a
I tell
wonderful
my
way to do it.
clients such a similar thing. I just don't have the cool breath and noises associated with it. But if they're angry or sad or whatever, I just am like, go turn on some music and scream in your car. Drive
Yeah.
up to a mountaintop and scream, right? Just get it out. And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, no one's going to hear you. Trust me. But I love that. I love that noise. I might try that next time I get angry. I'm just going to
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
just let
Yeah.
it out.
Let it out.
Yeah. Oh,
I think of even like, um, yeah, just like moving, and that's the second branch of the classical Chinese medicine is movement. So when you incorporate the two, like moving your body and
mm.
like slamming a pillow and like yelling at it, or or
Yep.
something, like
Yep.
really letting it out, it all like just makes a great remedy for frustration, and not
100%.
having to carry it with you everywhere you go.
Yeah, that's what
So
I tell people. I'm like, you got to feel it. Don't wallow in it,
mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
you have to feel it. And usually, once people feel it and they've given themselves the permission to feel it, truly feel it, then it releases on its own. And you don't have to worry about the wallowing, right? Some people
Yeah.
can get trapped. So I'm like, just have an expiration date. Like I had just graduated with my doctorate degree and couldn't find a job. And so I went for like a job interview and did like 4 interviews. They told me I got it, did all the hullabaloo, and then all of a sudden they ghosted me.
Oh no.
And
My
it
goodness.
was the only time that I had gotten an interview after grad school. So it's not like I had 3 other interviews lined up or anything else. It was the only thing that I had in like 6 months or so. And so I was like really, really upset about it. And so I came home after getting on the call with HR and them being like, oh, yeah, by the way, we shouldn't have offered you that position. And, um, and so I came home and I told my husband, and I went to the bedroom, and he happened to watch it because I just freaked out right in front of him, and I just like screamed, and I like pounded my fists against the bed, and I screamed, and I was just like, I'm nothing. This whole thing was worthless, blah blah blah. And he was like, whoa. And I was like, I'm gonna be fine. I just need to feel like crap for the rest of the day. And I was just like, whatever it, I'm just, don't ask anything from me. And I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and I was back on it and I was like, nope, I'm going to keep going. I'm obviously going to keep trying, and everything worked out. But it
Yeah.
was because I took the moment to really feel the feelings. I guess with the screaming and the pounding, I was doing something that I just instinctually was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
didn't. And so, yeah, it worked itself out. And the next morning I was like, no, I'm fine. This sucks, but I'm fine. And I
Yep.
kept going. And eventually I am here. So,
And here you are. And I think
mhm.
you just brought up such a good point. I think we live in a society where we're in general, we're not in tune with our instincts or our intuition, right? And if we were, that would that's a natural response that we would
Mhm.
have just like an animal, right? A dog would get frustrated, it would go do what it needed to do, it would snap snap at you and then like go and like chew its toy for 5 minutes, and then it'd be like happy
Yep.
wagging its tail again, right?
Yep.
So, but we are, I don't know at what point in our life, at like what stage we learn to repress that, to
Hmm.
repress those natural instincts because it's not normal or normal within society, right? And so we just hold it in. We can't let anybody see that we're upset, or we can't let anyone
Yep.
see that we're sad. We can't let anybody, see whatever emotion it is, when truly the most natural human thing you can do is feel it and
Yep.
experience it, and then let it go.
Yep.
And release
Exactly.
it. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's a, I think it's certainly something um we're starting to shift into, right?
Yep.
I think collectively people are starting to see that it's okay to share how you feel, and express yourself, express your emotions. Um, but it's, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to see, to be aware of it, and to see where because I used to be one of those people. And I still am sometimes, that I do sometimes still hold something in, and not let it
Hmm.
out till later than it needs to be. Um, but to understand or see both sides, and know that there's still so many people that don't feel safe expressing their
Yep.
emotions or sharing their emotions. And so, yeah. So
Yep.
what's exciting, what's new that you're working on, and what do you want to share with everybody? Unless there's something else you want to share, if there's any tidbits of information that you think are important to round out our awesome conversation so far, because I feel like we could just go on for
Oh
hours
my
if we
God.
if
Yeah.
we spiral out.
Seriously. We could, yeah, we would have a lot of fun, and it would be a really interesting conversation because there's so much between your profession and my profession that overlap, right?
Absolutely.
And it truly is a mind, body, soul situation, and so working collaboratively, like I think that one day having like a place where people can go and get the mind, body, and spirit all taken care of is
Yeah,
my
that's
hope
the
for the
vision.
future. Yeah. And I think the take home message I really want to send your listeners is the importance of just slowing down enough that you can pay attention to what your mind and your body and even your soul are telling you, right? Because it's all just information. It's nothing that you need to judge, right? So the thoughts in
Hmm.
our head, we don't need to judge. It's information, usually programming that we received either from society or for family or, what have you. What our body is telling us is just information so that we can be more connected and address things. I tell people your emotions are kind of like the dashboard of your car, and it just says check engine, check your tire pressure, all that kind of stuff. So when you have an emotion, it's not good or bad, it just is. It's just saying these are the areas you need to look at. And so if we as a society, which I think one of the few good things we can take from this COVID adventure is we've been forced to slow down, right? And when we have all been forced to slow down, that is where people are going, oh, maybe I don't have my things together as good as I thought I did. Great, you don't. None of us do. Congratulations, you're part of humanity. And to learn to slow down, to pay attention to all the signals that your mind, body, and soul are trying to give you so that you can just do something different with it. You don't have to be hard on yourself or think that you're a bad person because you don't have it together or that you've done something in the past you don't want to do anymore. Just notice it. Take some deep breaths. Love yourself and be kind. We are all in a struggle together and we are all going through something. We will always all be going through something. And so to give yourself some kindness, some love, and the opportunity to do it a different way, right? Because if it's dysfunctional, it just means we need to try something different, and that's okay. And sometimes you need professional help, and sometimes you don't, right? And so to know when you need to reach out to one of us for the help or somebody like us for the help, and when it's simple enough to just look up some resources, read some books, listen to some podcasts, get the information, and that's enough. But at the end of the day, we can do this. We can definitely do this. And the whole point of this crazy adventure, from my point of view, is to grow, to learn. And so none of us have it together, and there is no end point to learning. So
It's
enjoy the
infinite.
ride.
Absolutely. And I think we're certainly making the most of it and enjoying ourselves as much as we can through this. Ah, so before we go, I want to make sure you get to share your new exciting, I know you mentioned it at the beginning,
Mhm.
your new coaching business, but tell us a little bit about that and just share. I'll be posting for those listening, the all the links to get in contact with Lindsay are going to be in the show notes as well as the description on the YouTube channel. So if you just want to do a quick share on what that's about,
Sure.
and where people can kind of get a hold of you or follow along with you on social media.
So I try to do a decent amount of free content because I get so much of my content for free. So I'm like, I just, it's really important. So I have a podcast about mixing spirituality and psychology. It's kind of a little chronicle of my journey, along with, some tips and tricks about spirituality and mental health. It's called The Intuitive Psychologist, found on all major platforms. And just like you, now you have it in a much better way than I do. So I probably need to take a lesson from you and start visually recording things, because all it is I have my podcast uploaded to YouTube. So take my YouTube with a grain of salt. It's not that exciting. It's not like Jessica's, but you can find me there. And then on Instagram, I do Instagram lives on Wednesdays at 1:30 Pacific Standard Time. It's Q&As. Sometimes it's like ask a therapist. Usually I'll post a topic a few days in advance and answer some questions live. My Instagram, and get ready for the mouthful. I'm so sorry, people. Whatever. It is what it
I'll
is.
type it out
It's,
in the notes, don't
yeah,
worry.
it is the underscore intuitive underscore psychologist underscore 111. There are too many intuitive psychologists that were too similar. So I was like, I really need people to not confuse me with others. So that's where you'll find me. And then if you're in California, I provide therapy if you're interested. And if you're outside of California and you're looking for a coach, I'm really wanting to work right now with people that are in the beginning stages of a spiritual awakening, so that I can help them to not feel like they're going crazy. I think
Mm,
it's helpful that they have somebody on both ends of the spectrum on mental health to say, okay, I have my training and education and all that stuff in therapy, right? And in mental health. And I can say certifiably, you are not schizophrenic. You're just going through an awakening, that can give people some comfort, to
yeah.
know that they're not schizophrenic, because it feels like you were losing your mind. Now, I don't diagnose, I don't provide assessments or like treat mental health symptoms through the coaching, but I can help you attain goals and help you along your spiritual path to connect
Beautiful.
in and to connect deeply. So that is intuitivepsych.com. And so I'll send all that stuff to you so that they don't have to figure out how to spell everything.
Beautiful. I love it. And the website is beautiful. I'm so excited for this venture for you. It's just, and it's what's needed, I feel. It's absolutely
Thank
needed in
you.
this world. And you do beautiful, amazing work, and your meditations are amazing. So yeah, I'm really excited for listeners to connect with you and experience what you have to share. So Thank you so much for being here and for
Thank
being my
you.
first guest. This has been
Yay.
fabulous.
I had so
You'll have
much
to come
fun.
back at some point,
I'll be
and
happy
we'll
to. We have
have
so much to talk about.
seriously, we'll have to come up with some other things. I mean, there'll be plenty of topics that we can talk about, but we'll come up with a reason to
Oh, yeah.
bring it back. So if you're tuning in on the podcast, everything will be included on the show notes to get a hold of Lindsay. And if you're a more visual person, this is on the will be on the YouTube channel as well, and you'll find all of the information within the description of the video. And you can find my social media links there as well. And please connect with us and let us know what topics you want to hear more about, because really, this, as much as this is fun for me to create and share in this experience with Lindsay and with other future guests down the line, it's for all of you. So
Hmm.
let me know and let us know what you really want to hear more about, and we'll talk about it. Thank you so much, everyone. So much love for all of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.